Testing, testing.
Please be upstanding for His Honourable the Mayor and Deputy Mayor.
Please take a seat. Where's my script? Have you got my script somewhere? Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Council. My name is Councillor Adrian Mather and I'm Mayor of Wokingham and I will chair this meeting. Before we start the business set out on the agenda, I would like to go through a few preliminaries. Please note that this meeting is currently being webcast live. There are no fire drills planned this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building via the nearest exit and gather at muster point 2, which is located in the car park at the rear of the building. A reminder that councillors do need to stand when speaking in the chamber. I should know that by now, shouldn't I? Can councillors ensure that your nameplate is clearly displayed in front of you? May I remind everyone that I intend to adhere strictly to the timing set out in the Constitution. I would like to remind councillors to be mindful to speak directly into their microphones when speaking. If councillors turn away from the microphone, the sound will not be picked up for the online attendees. At this point, mayors that are leaving this office usually quote Churchill or Roman or Greek luminaries. However, I would like to paraphrase Katy Perry. You pushed me down and I got up. My wife and I were economic migrants to the southeast from Staffordshire. We came here with absolutely no money in our bank accounts. I could not possibly imagine being mayor of such a wonderful borough as Wokingham. We are forever grateful for this opportunity. I want to speak out about what I've seen and then a few items that I haven't seen. I have seen council officers working very hard for the residents. Steve Bowers and the TLIP representatives working very hard for the Gorse Ride residents. First Days Charity and officers showing amazing care for the families and children of our residents. Many charities, too many to mention, doing amazing things, supporting our residents and supporting our social care charter and our Communities Vision 2035. Ophthalis officers and all the other providers of care delivering amazing care to our elderly and infirm residents. Fantastic achievements from our schools, including Embrook's recent exam results and Embrook winning the mock trials regional final at Reading Crown Court. Supporting achievement across the borough, sporting achievement, including over 1,400 football clubs in the borough. We have an amazing level of participation in sport. Celebrations of D-Day, VE Day, and remembrance for all the families affected by loss and service in all wars. Celebrations of diversity, including celebrations for our Muslim community, our Chinese community, our Indian and Hindu communities, and our Kashmiri community. We also celebrated our gay and trans communities and neurodiverse communities affected by mental health issues. And for a Mr. Farage, I have seen our public health officers involved in critical health work across the borough, integrating the NHS and local GP services, and our climate officers bringing critical projects to delivery, including the Barkham Solar Farm. I've got 3 highlights, and they all happened really near the beginning of my time. One highlight was Greg, a sufferer of motor neurone disease, explaining why he wanted less intrusive care at the start of his dramatic illness. I think that was really humbling for me. And unfortunately, most of you have not met a young man called Jay, who has the most incredible sense of humour. And Jay showed me around the upgraded respite centre on the Reading Road, and he's just a natural born comedian. He's brilliant, but obviously he's involved in that service. And the third highlight was an absolutely beautiful young lady with Down syndrome, very politely asking me, "Please, Mr. Mayor, can I have a photograph with you?" And she was beautiful, a really lovely, lovely person. Before I forget, we do have nibbles, and there is some wine. I think the nibbles might be 1979 vintage British Rail sandwiches, and the wine may be sort of mid-90s Thresher, Norman Lamont, Shiraz or something. But we will have some nibbles, and I really mean everybody's welcome. I've tried to remain non-partisan in this role, and I've really tried to make sure that the Labour Party and the Conservative Party have had time to articulate their views and challenges. So I would really welcome everybody. Thank you. There's a couple of things I haven't seen. One thing, which is me being like a broken record, I haven't seen any death benefits for the two very long-serving and very hard-working councillors who unfortunately died in service this year, who will both be dearly missed. And the second thing I haven't seen, after a lot of talk and a lot of inaction, I would say, we haven't seen any central government budget for the absolutely required new Royal Berks Hospital. I've been on the inside of Royal Berks Hospital. The care and delivery of services that the staff do there is astonishing, considering the age and maintenance level of those buildings. They really need a new hospital so they don't have to worry about leaks through the roof, failing electrics, failing everything. And I would love to see a new Royal Berks Hospital for everybody's care. I think that's it. We move on to the next part. I would like to now invite nominations for the office of Mayor for the municipal year 2025-2026. Please go ahead, Beth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate Councillor Carol Jewell for the position of Mayor for the forthcoming municipal year. Carol was first elected to Woodley Town Council in 1979, and I've just worked out that you need more than one hand to calculate how many years ago that was.
Sorry, we need a seconder, sorry. Thank you. Please go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, sorry. She's been Mayor of Woodley 3 times. And in fact, at one time, Woodley Town Council was quite dual-led because other members of her family, including her daughter sitting over there, sorry, Kay, was a town councillor too. She's been a borough councillor before we were a borough, and so she has proven long service in local government. Carol's been my friend for many years. We work together on casework, we share lots of coffee, that sort of thing. Her interests, which are quite opposite to lots of mine, which means we make a good balancing act, are active travel. You can see her around Woodley and other areas in the borough on her bike quite often. Last year, she also founded Woodley Repair Cafe. We've had 15 Sundays in Woodley where we run a repair cafe. We laugh a lot and eat cake. Any environmental staff will know that she's a volunteer gardener and has her own allotment. The rhubarb's lovely. Her family, 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters, are a huge part of her life. They mean such a lot to her. I'm sure that those who have attended online meetings for her know she has a cat. Also a very big part of her life, and we're all familiar with him because he likes to be top cat when we have meetings. Carol will make a very good mayor. She's had practice runs at it. She is a very genuine, generous person, and I endorse her to be mayor for the year.
Are there any other nominations?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate Shahid Yunus to be Mayor. He started in politics in 2003 as a Woodley Town Councillor. This isn't anything about Woodley, by the way. It just seems everybody comes from Woodley. And became a councillor in Bullmush.
Sorry, can we have a seconder as well, please? Sorry. Thank you. Alison.
And became a councillor in Bullmush and Whitegates and then Bullmush and Coronation in 2011. He's been very active as a councillor and in the local community and was Deputy Executive Member for Children's Services. He's passionate about education and co-founded a charity in 2005 aimed at enhancing the prospects for young people from vulnerable backgrounds. He also served for 6 years as Governor of Bullmush School. He's calm and thoughtful, and Shahid would make an excellent mayor for our community, and I would ask you to support him.
Thank you. So we have 2 nominations, and what I will do is take each nomination in alphabetical order. We obviously have a seconder for each nomination, and each proposer has already spoken. So what I'll do is, as I said, say each councillor in alphabetical order, and then if you vote for each councillor in turn, and the one with the simple majority will be voted as mayor. So, if I take Councillor Carol Jewell first, if you want to vote for Carol, please put your hand up. And if you want to vote for Councillor Shahid Yunus, please raise your hand. Thank you for that. So, having looked at the votes by virtue of a simple majority of votes, Councillor Carol Jewell has actually got the most votes. So upon conclusion of the voting, I declare that Councillor Carol Jewell will be elected as Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council for 25-26 municipal year.
Before I disrobe, I would like to make the presentation of a few sets of flowers, and then Carol and I will leave and we will exchange costumes, as it were. But I'd like to move away from the microphone, if possible. I'll do this in reverse order, I'm not sure. I'll make it as I go along. Stuart, I've always wanted to... No. Caroline is immense in the background, and without Caroline, there is absolutely no way I could have done this job. Thank you very much, Caroline.
please be upstanding for her dutiful mayor and deputy mayor.
Please be seated. It's all sitting and standing, isn't it? I, Carol Jewell, having been elected to the office of Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council, declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Very heavy chair. Right. I'm settled and I can actually see you. I'm not tucked down in the lower seat, so which is good. And I did have my notes in front of me. Beg your pardon. I moved them along. No, it's my speech. Sorry about that. Thank you for electing me as Mayor of Woking Borough. It's a great honour. Representing the Borough Council and the Borough in the coming year will be both a privilege and a pleasure. I moved to Woodley in 1966 and 18 years later was elected to the then Wokingham District Council. I served for 12 years and here I am back again. Over those decades, there have been many changes, but the one constant has been the number of amazing volunteers that work throughout the borough in all spheres of life. Their commitment is the glue that holds our community together, making people's lives better. I hope to meet many of them over the coming year and find out about the work that they do. I look forward to visiting organisations covering a wide range of interests for the young and old and everything in between. The commercial sector is important to the borough's economy and hopefully there will be opportunities to support them. As you heard from Beth, I'm a regular cyclist for environmental and fitness reasons. And I hope there may be one or two events when I can turn up on my bike and underline the importance of active travel and the need to reduce our carbon footprints. I thought I could put the chain in the saddlebag and it should be fine. I would like to thank Caroline and her team of mayoral support for their help when I was Deputy Mayor. I'm going to be relying on that support for another year as I take on mayoral duties. I will also have the support of my sister Lynn, who will be my consort. Finally, I'd like to say thank you to Adrian. He's gone into the cheap seats. Yes, hello Adrian. Adrian, for his hard work as mayor. He has shown huge commitment and has been a brilliant representative of the borough. It will not be easy to follow in his large footsteps, both metaphorically and literally. Thank you very much. We move on then to, can everybody hear me okay? Good. On to business and the appointment of Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 25-26. I'd like to invite nominations for the office of Deputy Mayor for that year, please. Before the nominations, okay. Oh yes, right. Beg your pardon. Veer's putting me straight already. Yes, I did the thanks to, right, I'm with it. What I'd like to do is also, I thanked Adrian, but I know there was somebody behind you all the time, Adrian. And Debbie, thank you for everything that you did and supporting Adrian. And I'd like to ask my sister Lynn to come up, and I will to give her what they're calling a badge, I would call the chain, as my consort for the coming year. Right, where was I? Sorry about that. Yes, I'd like to invite nominations for the office of Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 25-26. Adrian,
Yes, I'd like to nominate Rob Comer.
do you have a seconder? Thank you, Lou. Are there any other nominations? Yes, Rebecca.
Hello, I'd like to nominate Alison Swaddle.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Got two to choose from.
Happy to second.
So, Adrian, did you want to speak to that nomination?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've known Rob. Oh, sorry. I'm used to sitting down rather. Yes, apologies for that. I've known Rob for probably longer than he would wish, and perhaps a bit longer than I would wish. But you know, Rob is one of my favourite people in the world. Why? Because he has a tremendous intellect, a tremendous rigour, eye for detail, which I think is highly suitable for this role as a councillor. I think he will bring a lot to the role of Deputy Mayor, as indeed any role in this council. You know, he has a very good wit. He has an amazing garden. You know, I've seen it many times, and I can honestly say he's never spent 5 minutes mowing it or anything. He clearly does absolutely no garden maintenance. So he will not have very nice rhubarb or anything else. He will be spending time on council business, which I think is a good thing. But his eye for detail is incredible. It's exasperating, irritating. It's caused many rows, but we've got through the rows, and I really appreciate him as a person and as an intellect. So I think he'd be an excellent Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Rebecca, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose Alison Swaddle. As you all know, she's a long-standing councillor since 2019, both in Coronation, 16, sorry, I've been corrected. Do you want to take over? As we all know, Alison, she likes to have a point of view across and have her voice heard very well, as she's clearly shown this evening. So I was trying to say she's been in Coronation Ward, and on Woodley Town Council as well, where she also served as deputy leader. She's dedicated and hardworking. She's served on many committees and chaired many committees, I think very fairly, and for all political groups. I think she'd be very well suited to this role and fully endorse this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. So in view of the two nominees, what I'll be asking is for you to vote for each nominee in turn, and it will be in alphabetical order as before. So the first nominee is Councillor Rob Comer. So if you can vote, please. The second nominee is Councillor Alison Swaddle. If you can vote, please. Okay. Thank you. So I'm pleased to announce that Councillor Rob Comer is duly appointed as Deputy Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council for the 2025-26 municipal year.
Rob, do you want to pick up your nameplate and walk? So we'll go down to Caroline and do these badges.
I, Rob Comer, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I have the opposite problem to Adrian. I'm used to standing up to talk. So, fellow councillors, guests and residents, good evening. To my fellow councillors, thank you for electing me as Deputy Mayor. And much to your relief, I shall be very brief. Having just finished a year as Mayor for Wokingham Town, I feel that I'm fortunate to at least understand what is expected of a Mayor and Deputy Mayor. It can be very daunting to chair meetings such as this and to represent one's town or borough at the many events that require it, so I appreciate having had some level of appropriate experience. And many of you, like myself, may be on one of our bigger town councils or perhaps on one of our parish councils, and will, like myself, recognise the similarities, but also the considerable differences between the types of council. I look forward to the opportunity to support Carol in her mayoral year, and I shall do my best to help her in whatever way she may require of me. As a relative newcomer compared to many of you to the Borough Council, I'm well aware of the honour of this appointment, and when required, I shall do my best to represent the Borough Council and the Borough as it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. He's going to do that later, I think, yeah. No, I think he's going to add it as one, yeah. Sorry, change of plan. There's no connection here. I'd like to sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of March 2025 and the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 24th of April 2025 as the correct record. May I see a show of hands, please? Yeah, can do, yeah. Right, that's a majority. The minutes are agreed. Thank you. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
We have 3 apologies. Councillor Jackie Rance, Councillor Wayne Smith and Councillor Stuart Monroe.
Thank you. Item 5 is declarations. Oh, sorry.
I think we need to add apologies from Mark Brunel Walker and Jordan Montgomery. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Right, the next item is declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to declare an interest in any item on the agenda? No, thank you very much. And we move on then to Mayor's announcements. Obviously, I haven't been out doing anything yet, but I'd like to talk about the charities I've chosen. And that charity is Building for the Future. Building for the Future, or BFTF as it's known, is a fantastic Woking-based parent-led grassroots-funded charity set up in 2007. It has provided a fabulous custom-designed play space called Our House, which has been meeting the needs of local children and young people with disabilities since 2014, and which has offered activities, support and therapy. The charity works in partnership with other disability community groups to provide a joined-up local service and is very proud to have been awarded the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service. Building for the Future recognises the critical need for a safe space when families can come together, share their experiences and find solace and support from others navigating similar journeys. They are committed to addressing these pressing needs and creating a brighter future for disabled children, young people and their families. Building for the Future launched BFTF Plus in June 2021 to support young, local disabled adults who have left school or college in working towards achieving their ambitions. BFTF run regular workshops and social events and give individual advice and support for young people who want to access work, education and cultural opportunities. I think you'll agree with me, they're a perfect choice for a mayor's charity and I should do my best to support them and during my year. So thank you very much. I would now like to invite the leader to speak about the arrangements for the executives for 25-26. Stephen, you have 10 minutes. Pauline, as Leader of the Opposition, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and may I be the first to congratulate you on becoming Mayor. It's wonderful to see you up there. I do remember when I joined the Council in 1994, you were already well established, and it's wonderful to see you all these years later sitting up there. And may I also be the second person to thank the outgoing Mayor for his absolutely sterling service to the borough over this last year. No one, I think, can deny that Wokingham Borough Council faces substantial financial challenges. We receive, as I'm sure everyone knows, the smallest amount of core revenue support from central government of any English council with the same range of responsibilities. Even so, our already inadequate core revenue funding has been cut this year and is likely to be reduced further in the years ahead. Yet our costs are rising as demand for our services grows and the needs of our residents become more complex and more expensive to address. Despite the scale of the challenge, I remain optimistic about the future of the council and of the community it serves. My optimism is based on what I see as three big advantages that we possess that differentiate us from many other councils. The first is the strength of our external partnerships. We have devoted time and effort to improving the council's relationship with its community partners, especially the voluntary and charitable sector, town and parish councils, business, the University of Reading, schools, and health providers. We are forging much more effective relationships with these bodies than in the past, and they will help our community weather whatever storms may hit us. This administration will continue to work to nurture and deepen these relationships in the firm belief that we can achieve more together than we can on our own. We are now receiving external plaudits for our commitment to partnership working. The Empower consultancy rated us as the 5th best council in the whole of England for efficiency in terms of outcomes achieved per pound spent. The sharing of experience, expertise, data and resources, human, material and financial, with our external partners has been a vital part of our success. The council has also been shortlisted for the prestigious Local Authority of the Year award, and our record of partnership working played a big part in our shortlisting. We have great internal strengths too. A second big advantage we possess is that this council has impressive and dedicated officers who want to make a difference and are committed to the public service. I hope all councillors will appreciate the enormous contribution our officers make. Without them, we could do nothing. They are the council's greatest asset. A strong and respectful relationship between officers and elected members is vital for any successful council, and I believe that we now have that kind of relationship here in Wokingham. Anyone doubting the importance of such a positive relationship might want to consider the record of councils that have failed financially. They all had different routes to insolvency, but one common feature: a breakdown in the relationship between officers and councillors. Our third advantage is the great range of experience and talent in this council chamber amongst elected councillors of all parties. In the coming year, I should like to build upon the progress we have made with the overview and scrutiny committees. In the past, these were arenas of party conflict, with opposition councillors calling in executive decisions and seeking to have them overturned or at least modified after decisions had been made. Rarely, if ever, did anything positive come from such an adversarial process. Over the last couple of years, we have tried a different approach, with reports coming to overview and scrutiny before decisions have been made by the executive. The result has been a much more constructive engagement, with the executive accepting modifications or amendments that improve the outcome. I hope we can extend this good practice. I'll be encouraging my executive colleagues to work with relevant overview and scrutiny committees to secure their input at an early stage of policy development. In the spirit of drawing on the talents in the Council, irrespective of party, I have offered chairs and vice chairs of different Council committees to the Labour and Conservative groups. An inclusive approach is appropriate because there is much on which we can agree. I hope this administration's broad aims are shared across the Council chamber. Helping everyone, regardless of who they are, to realise their potential is our guiding principle. Everyone deserves the chance to contribute. Individuals feel happier and more fulfilled, and we all benefit from tapping the talent available in our community. If we share the same aspiration, working together to achieve it should not be impossible. I hope we can also all agree that sound finances are a priority. Without them, we can do nothing to serve the public. We need to think long-term, engaging in Invest to Save initiatives and promoting prevention and early intervention to reduce future budgetary pressures. Planning for the future likewise requires us to keep our reserves at a healthy level to give us protection against unforeseen circumstances. But I hope all councillors are also ambitious to make improvements. Over the last year, we've been able to enhance bus services, libraries and other community facilities, open a new care home, progress our new solar farm, which will generate an income we can use to support services, work with volunteers from across the borough to produce the co-authored community's vision, which will set the council's broad strategic direction for the next decade. See beautiful, energy-efficient new homes occupied at Gorse Ride redevelopment. Give disabled and disadvantaged children the chance to learn how to express their creative abilities in the wonderful Forest of the Imagination project on art and the environment, and provide additional school places to meet local needs. I hope all councillors welcome these and many other achievements of the past year. Looking ahead to the new municipal year, councillors will see in their papers the list of executive members and their roles. The changes from last year are relatively few. Lou Timlin takes on a new portfolio, bringing together community safety and public protection. Adrian Betteridge also joins the executive, taking on responsibility for active travel, transport and highways. Martin Alder moves over to planning, though I will continue to oversee the new local plan until it's adopted. Prue Bray, Imogen Shepherd-Dubay, Rachel Bishop-Firth, Catherine Harding, Mark Ashwell and David Hare continue in their roles. I look forward to working with this impressively talented executive over the coming year. My final point is a reminder that on many matters that we seek to address, there is more consensus than party political point scoring suggests. There will always, of course, be areas of disagreement, but let's not manufacture contention where none exists. Let's work together whenever possible. That's what our residents expect of their councillors. There is a yearning amongst the public for a more grown-up, adult form of politics. Let's show that we can provide it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Pauline.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the ex-mayor Adrian on his very successful year and thank him for all his hard work. He was very good and fair and even-handed in chairing the council, and I would like to sincerely give our thanks from the Conservative group to him for being so professional. I'd also like to congratulate the new Mayor, Carol, on her election and wish her all the best for the next year. I'd also like to thirdly thank officers for their support and help this year. They've been very, very good and have been very helpful, certainly to me and to the other shadow exec members and also councillors, so thank you. We've now reached the start of the 4th year of a Liberal Democrat administration on Woking Borough Council. The previous 3 years has been one of Liberal Democrat lack of planning and poor decision making, disregard for residents' views and declining services. 2 years of dithering on the local plan, giving developers a free hand, followed by the Liberal Democrats reneging on their promises to residents to protect the borough from development, including Hall Farm. We all remember their then leader, now MP, being photographed, placard in hand, opposing this development. When the Lib Dems brought forward their plan, they claimed it was a done deal, that it couldn't be changed, and that it protected the borough for 5 years. Advice and evidence that's come out since suggest all these excuses and claims were wrong. Conservative councils have represented residents opposed to the local Liberal Democrats' broken local plan, as it was unsustainable for transport and our countryside, including almost 4,000 new homes at Hall Farm. With the planning inspectors having raised concerns about whether the draft local plan is even achievable, this fight is not over. It is not surprising that the administration broke promises and ignored residents and went ahead with the local plan. It's been the same story elsewhere. Scrapping weekly waste collection despite a petition of nearly 2,000 signatures to keep it, more than doubling car parking charges despite 4,000 residents opposing the increase and many businesses pointing out how disastrous it would be, and refusing to back down when Conservative councillors demanded a rethink. Repeatedly they promised to deliver a new 6th form at Bowhunt, only to announce it wasn't going to happen on time in the middle of July before the start of the term in September. Since the Liberal Democrats have come to power, Conservative councillors have worked with residents to force the administration into backtracking on some of their policy failures and poor decision making. When the Liberal Democrats removed a number of public litter bins and reduced the frequency of collection on others, Conservative councillors acted quickly to demonstrate the folly of this false economy. As a result, the Liberal Democrats backed down, claiming no decision had been made, despite a press release having been tweeted out by the council with a quote from the relevant Liberal Democrat executive member. There's been a pattern of Lib Dems making mistakes and then trying to blame everybody else when it all goes wrong. I very much welcome Stephen's comments about working closely on scrutiny to help hone proposals and avoid these sort of issues. We will continue to cooperate and make constructive comments at scrutiny to all the draft proposals that come forward. When Liberal Democrats were presented with a petition for a pedestrian crossing outside Crossfield School in Shinfield, they didn't do anything. When a child was involved in a collision with a cyclist, they said accidents do happen, and a crossing was not a priority. When I brought a motion for a crossing to this chamber, the Liberal Democrats and Labour councillors spoke against it, only for the council to U-turn months later. The time and money spent twisting and turning would have been better spent on getting on with providing a crossing to help school children and local residents. I am also glad to see that Stephen in his speech recognised the value of the Conservative project to redevelop Gorse Ride. I'm very much in favour of that, and I'm really pleased that it is being... Sorry? Yes, started by the Conservatives. Well, it was a Conservative project. At the start of this new municipal year, the Conservative group has a clear focus on how we will be delivering for residents. We'll continue to make the case against the disastrous parts of the Liberal Democrats' local plan, in particular the impact on local roads, whilst maintaining our support for measures to protect green spaces. Conservatives will also take the fight to the Labour government on the impact of its policies on local government and our communities. We've already campaigned against cuts to winter fuel allowances, the increase in employers' national insurance contributions and the family farm tax. I'm pleased we're seeing a rethink on at least one of those possibly. Local Labour MPs this week trooped to the Health Secretary down to Reading to claim that they're fully behind Royal Berkshire Hospital, even though kicked the work well into the next decade and refused to vote to speed it up. We're keeping up the pressure on Labour to bring this work forward. We also need to see a sustainable cross-party approach on social care, and we'll continue to oppose Labour's damaging schools policy, which reduces the autonomy of academies and parents. We're already seeing the impact of Labour's VAT charges on private schools with fees skyrocketing higher than Labour claimed, causing pupils to enrol in state schools and increasing pressure on the state system. Conservatives will also continue to campaign against Labour's cut to local authority funding, which Stephen mentioned, and its top-down plans to force local authorities like ours to be subsumed into a monster council, meaning the voices of local people will be lost, benefiting no one. Conservatives are listening to residents. We know they're tired of being ignored by this council. We know they're not happy with the policies of the Liberal Democrats and Labour. And with their help, we will hold the administration to account.
Pauline,
We know
can
local people want a
could you
different
wrap up,
direction.
please?
Over the next year, the Conservative group will stand up for residents, fight for the policies they want and need, and continue to make the case for why it's time for change.
Thank you very much. Now move on to item 7, which is public question time. I'd like to remind executive members that responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and these will be timed. Our first public question is from Peter Humphreys. Peter, would you like to put your question?
At the last council meeting, it was agreed to award the waste collection contract to a secret provider. The information supplied in the minutes is very limited, but I would hope that cost was a prime consideration in the tender process and subsequent award. Clearly, employee costs are a very significant element in the provision of this service. Currently, Wokingham Borough Council utilises 3 or 4 binmen per dust cart, yet other authorities manage a one-man operation. I attached a video I took of a one-person operated refuge cart in Aotearoa, New Zealand, earlier this year to show how effective and, of course, economical such a system is. Clearly, this system could be operated on most of the borough streets. I wish to know whether the council will be adopting this practice in its new contracts, or will council taxpayers be lumbered with an antiquated, overstaffed and costly alternative?
Thank you for your question, Peter. My first as executive member. And also for your innovative ideas. So firstly, I'm happy to provide a full reassurance that both cost and quality were prime considerations in the tender process and the award. They both matter to our residents, and the decision was made considering both elements. In response to your question about the method of collection, as an authority, we did not set out to potential bidders what vehicles should be used to collect the waste, nor state how many people were required to collect it. Instead, we set out what outcomes we wanted to see from the service, and that means that bidders explained their own view of the best way to collect the waste, both in terms of people and vehicles. Included in that was clear productivity information to outline how their own solution was arrived at and what made it efficient. There are also many other factors built into the decision made, including health and safety issues and the fit to Wokingham's roads and housing layout, as well as the social value delivered by the contract, of which employment is one component. I hope that that reassures you about the thorough nature of the decision made.
Thank you, Catherine. Peter, do you have a supplementary?
Of course. You said that cost would be a consideration, but you only specified the outcomes and not the way of getting there. So clearly one person would be significantly cheaper by about 75% than 4 people would. So do you have an inkling? Can you let us know how many people per dust cart we are now going to get, since the contract is near enough done?
I don't have that detail to mind at the moment. We can provide a written response, but in regards to your question around the approach, through following the competitive bidding process, it was an excellent way to ensure that we've got most up-to-date best practice from around the country, and that we had that competitive process to get the best value for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is one posed by Claire Solomons, but Lucy Solomons is here to ask the question. And in view of that, Lucy, there's no supplementaries, but would you like to put your question, please?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Will the local authority raise the issue of the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund changes and cuts as a matter of urgency with government and seek to support the children and families impacted by funding crucial therapy?
Thank you, and thank you for asking the question on behalf of Claire. I, alongside staff in Children's Services and the wider sector who work to support existing and prospective adoptive parents, are concerned by these changes to the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund. And I understand that discussions are still taking place between the Department for Education and leaders from regional adoption agencies and Adoption England, and final plans will also be subject to the spending review in June. I will ensure that Woking Borough Council continues to lobby for appropriate funding for this vital support, and I will be discussing the issue with our local MPs. And I completely understand why parents need this certainty and I'm sorry I can't provide more information about the future funding at this time. My focus is ensuring that our local MPs are briefed and can advocate for additional resources from government as part of the spending review to seek to ensure that our children receive the support that they need. And in fact, I am pleased to say that Clive Jones has already spoken out about this cut in Parliament, so we know that he understands the importance of the issue and the potential negative impact on families.
Thank you, Prue. The next question is from Anne-Marie Tipper, asking the Executive Member for Children's Services. Thank you.
Sorry, it's another on the same theme. Following the extreme cuts in the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund, adoptive families and those under special guardianship orders now find themselves not just restricted by the government, but also by the avoidance in local authorities to the care of vulnerable children. Before the fund changed its criteria, the local authority committed to matched funding alongside the ASGSF for vulnerable families. Last financial year, families were allowed £5,000 per child for therapy. This has now been cut to 3. Plus last year, in exceptional cases, the ASGSF and the local authority could joint fund up to 50% of amounts above this limit, up to a maximum of £30,000 per child. These families can now only access £3,000 with no potential of joint funding. It feels local authorities are being avoidant in answering why there's no capacity for the local authority to top up this allowance, as has been done previously. Families are being punished twice, once by the restriction in government funding and again by the local authorities bypassing their previous commitment. Has this separate funding stream disappeared? And what are the Woking Borough Council prepared to do to reinstate this much needed supplemented support for adopted families and those under special guardianship orders?
Thank you for your question. You've just heard my response to the earlier question about the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund, so I'm not going to repeat that bit. But your question asks additionally about local authority spending, and I can confirm that we will continue to support adoptive families and those under special guardianship order, but as I'm sure that you must realise, we simply do not have the funds to replace the money that the government will not now be providing. We are part of Adopt Thames Valley, and I'm sure we will be discussing this issue with the other local authorities involved, both to ensure that our limited funding is used as effectively as possible, but also with a view to making the case for the government to look again at the level of funding they're proposing for the Adoption Special Guardianship Support Fund.
Thank you. Anne-Marie, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Research shows us that these children are exceedingly vulnerable and they're more open to become school refusers, turning to drugs and alcohol, and making really difficult life choices. I'm wondering if there are clear contingency plans to catch the fallout of the money that was already put in by the local authority, not the money from the government, to help support these really vulnerable families in such a crisis time.
So last year, in 2024-25, we had 82 applications from this fund for working families, which came to a total of just over 176,000. The exceptional cases, which are the ones that go up to 30,000, are extremely rare in our experience. You mentioned the figure of £3,000 and £5,000 in your original question. We are going to look at every individual case, and we haven't ruled out going above the 3,000 to the 5,000 if the needs justify it. So we will do everything we can.
Thank you very much. That takes us on to item 8, which is petitions. Does anyone wish to submit a petition? Yes, carry on. Do you want to speak to the petition and then you can hand it in? Or yeah, would you like to speak to it first? Thank you.
Thank you. And before I start, Madam Mayor, can I be the first citizen to congratulate you on your role as the new first citizen? Good evening. I have here a petition from residents who want the council to install a pedestrian crossing on the Wokingham Road in Early, close to Early railway station. The petition was launched in late 2022. The petition was launched by Yuan Yang MP, but well before she became an MP. Yuan's is the first name on the petition. Yuan recognised the need for a crossing after listening to the concerns of residents in the area. Indeed, such were resident concerns that another resident had previously submitted a petition, but with a lack of support from local councillors, this petition had gained less than 50 signatures. Joanne has spoken to the originator of the original petition, and he was more than happy that she should take up the cudgel on behalf of local residents. To date, the petition has accumulated 379 signatures. The petition clearly demonstrates the considerable support for a pedestrian crossing at this location. The reason there is support for the crossing is because the traffic is fast and the road is busy. The two pedestrian islands are not always big enough to cope with the number of people trying to use them in busy periods. The nearest controlled crossing points are about half a kilometre in each direction. Contrary to some very misinformed opinion, the number of signatures does not determine whether or not a crossing will be installed, nor is installing a crossing a political decision of the executive. That would lead to all sorts of awful pork-barrel spending of council taxpayers' money. It is, of course, completely wrong to imply to residents that councillors, either as members of the executive or as a body, determine whether or not crossings are installed. Officers will have to perform a technical assessment of the location. The need at this location will be balanced against the need at other locations and the total funding available. One of the criteria officers will consider is whether or not there is local support for a petition, for a crossing. This petition demonstrates there is local support. Of course, a petition by itself will not generate any activity from officers. There needs to be a formal application for a crossing via the Wokingham Council website. I have submitted such an application, and this petition should be seen as supporting that application. One thing the executive can do to increase the likelihood of this crossing and other crossings being built is to increase the overall budget for crossings. The government has increased funding to Wokingham Borough this year, and it would be good to see some of that cash find its way to the crossings budget. Looking further ahead, Wokingham Borough Council will soon be able to negotiate with developers at Hall Farm. Advanced developer payments could be earmarked for this crossing, as clearly the Wokingham Road will be impacted by the many new cars in the area. I urge the executive to ensure that lack of funding does not stand in the way of this crossing being built. And I will now give the petition to...
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could you switch off your microphone, Andy? Thank you. Right, the next item we're coming to is item 9, which is the political balance of the council and the allocation and appointment to seats on committees and boards. So I understand the leader, sorry, wait for you to. And so the leader's proposing this report. If you want to move the recommendation. I think if we could just wait a minute and clear the gallery, as it were. Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think there's anything I need to say in relation to this. I think it's all very straightforward. Political proportionality has been applied. The political group leaders have made their nominations. I don't think there's any comment needed.
Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Prue. Does any member wish to speak against the report? No? In that case, the recommendations are carried. Thank you. Oh, yes, that's important, isn't it? Sorry about that. Just moving on. All those in favour then, please show. None against? No? Okay, thank you very much. Now we go on to, it gets a bit more complicated, so I apologise for any mishaps before we even get there. Appointments to joint committees, panels, working groups and other bodies. Again, Stephen, I understand you're proposing this report.
Yes, indeed, Madam Mayor. I mean, most of this, again, follows the same pattern.
Sorry, could I ask for a seconder before you? Thank you.
Most of this, again, follows the same pattern. There's been an allocation to groups on the basis of political proportionality, and the leaders of the groups have made their nominations. But in a few cases, there is only one place available and there is more than one nomination from the political groups. So I'm afraid in some cases, Madam Mayor, we will have to go to a vote to determine who will represent the council.
Is there anybody that wishes to speak against the report? No? Sorry, I knew I'd get it wrong. The nominations are set out in Appendix 2, which has been tabled. My intention is to seek agreement for all the appointments en bloc and seek a separate vote where there's more than one nomination for a seat. The seats that are in contention are highlighted in blue on Appendix 2. I will call on the Chief Executive to take the separate votes first where we have more than one nominee, and nominations will be taken in alphabetical order.
Okay, thank you very much. So if you can indicate your support for each nominee as I read the names out, please, and then I'll say which nominee is appointed. So the first is for the adoption panel, and the first nominee is Councillor David Hare. And the second nominee is Councillor Jackie Rance. And Councillor David Hare is appointed. If I move on to the fostering panel, and one member is required here. So the first nominee is David Hare. And the second nominee is Jackie Rance. And Councillor David Hare is appointed. I now move on to the Schools Forum, and there's two nominees, and the first nominee is Councillor Catherine Glover. And the second nominee is Councillor Moses Inyangavana. And Councillor Catherine Glover is appointed. If I move on to Secure Accommodation Panel, and the first nominee is Councillor Prue Bray. And the second nominee is Councillor Charles Magetts. And Councillor Prue Bray is appointed. If we move on to the Thames Valley Police and Crime Panel, the first nominee is Councillor Sam Akhtar. And the second nominee is Councillor Stephen Newton. And Councillor Stephen Newton is appointed. If we move on to Wokingham Learning Disability Partnership Board, the first... sorry. So with regards to the substitute for the Thames Valley Police and Crime Panel, the first nominee is Councillor Rob Comer. And the second nominee is Councillor Dave Edmonds. And Councillor Rob Comer is appointed. If we move on to the Wokingham Learning Disability Partnership Board, the first nominee is David Hare. And the second nominee is Rebecca Margetts. And Councillor David Hare is appointed.
Right, we move on to item 11, appointments to...
No. We haven't voted on the en bloc yet.
Oh, on block, yes. Yeah. Yes, we voted for those anomalies, but now we need to vote on block. So all those in favour of the, where there's no contention, those items that are in the agenda papers, please show.
This is appendix.
Anybody against? No? Okay, thank you. So those recommendations are carried. Right, move on to appointments to outside bodies. I'd just like to note that there's been a change to the report that's been tabled in Appendix 3. The nominee for the Finch Hampstead Baptist Church Advisory Board is now Rebecca Margetts. So if you'd like to make a note of that. So this report is being proposed by Stephen Conway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do you have a seconder? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you can see from Appendix 3, there are a significant number of contested nominations for representation on outside bodies, but there are some where there has been prior agreement that there will be no nominee from the ruling group. So we have taken the view that it's appropriate to allow Conservative representation on some of these outside bodies, as you can see from the printed Appendix 3.
Thank you, Stephen. Does anybody wish to speak against the report? If not, we'll move on to the voting. So I'd like to take the vote on the appointments where there is more than one nominee first. If I could ask the Chief Executive to manage the voting, please.
Thank you. So as before, I will call out each name in turn, each nominee, and if you can vote, please, and then I will announce who's appointed. So the first is Age Concern Twyford and District, and Councillor Sam Akhtar. And Councillor Martin Andrea. Councillor Martin Andrea is appointed. The next is Age UK Berkshire. Firstly, Kay Gilder. And David Hare. Councillor David Hare is appointed. The next, the Atomic Weapons Research Establishment Local Liaison Committee. The first nominee is Adrian Betteridge. And the second nominee, Dave Edmonds. And Councillor Adrian Betteridge is appointed. Berkshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. First nominee, Pauline Jorgensen. Second nominee, Jordan Montgomery. And Jordan Montgomery is appointed. The next, Berkshire Maestros. First nominee, Joseph Barley. Second nominee, Andrew Gray. Councillor Andrew Gray is appointed. The Berkshire Museum of Aviation. First nominee, Greg Bellow. And the second nominee, Vishal Srinivasan. Councillor Greg Bellow is appointed. The Berkshire Pension Fund Advisory Panel. First nominee, Dave Edmonds. The second nominee, Stephen Newton. And Councillor Stephen Newton is appointed. The Citizens Advice Wokingham, first nominee Rachel Bishop-Firth. The second nominee Rebecca Margetts. And Councillor Rachel Bishop-Firth appointed. The next, Keep Mobile, first nominee Peter Harbour. The second nominee Beth Rowland. Councillor Beth Rowland appointed. If we move on to Mid and West Berks Local Countryside Access Forum, the first nominee Catherine Glover. The second nominee Wayne Smith. Catherine Glover appointed. The Redibus Management Committee, the first nominee Peter Harper. The second nominee Caroline Smith. Councillor Caroline Smith appointed. Next, to the Royal Berkshire Hospital Foundation Trust Board of Governors, the first nominee Pauline Jorgensen. The second nominee Adrian Mather. Councillor Adrian Mather appointed. Next, to Sonning and District Welfare and Educational Trust, the first nominee Sam Akhtar. The second nominee Catherine Harding. Councillor Catherine Harding appointed. The next is South East Reserve Forces and Cadets Association, first nominee Adrian Betteridge. The second nominee Peter Harper. Councillor Adrian Betteridge appointed. The next, the Standing Conference on Archives, the first nominee Stephen Conway. The second nominee Pauline Jorgensen. Councillor Stephen Conway appointed. The Thames Basin Heaths Joint Strategic Partnership, the first nominee Mark Bruno Walker. And the second nominee Shona Turtle. Councillor Mark Bruno Walker appointed. The Polehampton Charity, the first nominee Sam Akhtar. The second nominee Stephen Conway. Councillor Stephen Conway appointed. The White Waltham Airfield Consultative Committee, the first nominee Sam Akhtar. The second nominee Martin Alder. Councillor Martin Alder appointed. The Wokingham Borough Sports Council, first nominee Rohit Alawat. The second nominee Mark Ashwell. Councillor Mark Ashwell appointed. Wokingham Borough Sports Sponsorship Fund, the first nominee Rohit Alawat. And the second nominee Mark Ashwell. Councillor Mark Ashwell appointed. Wokingham Job Support Centre Management Committee, first nominee Greg Bellow. The second nominee Yusra Salman. Councillor Greg Bellow appointed. Wokingham Volunteer Centre, first nominee Rachel Burgess. The second nominee Rebecca Margetts. Councillor Rachel Burgess appointed. The Wokingham Waterside Centre, first nominee Steve Newton. Second nominee Alison Swaddle. Stephen Newton appointed. The Wokingham Youth Counselling and Information Service, the first nominee Rochelle Shepherd-Debay. the second nominee, Vishal Srinivasan. Councillor Rochelle Shepherd-Debay appointed. Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative. First nominee, Carol Jewell. Second nominee, Majid Nagra. Third nominee, Yusra Salman. Okay, so we have a tied. Thank you for the correction. So we have two. So in terms of the votes, right, Carol Jewell and Majid Nagra are appointed. And the final is Woodley Volunteer Centre. The first nominee is Kay Gulder. And the second nominee is Beth Rowland. Councillor Beth Rowland appointed.
Thank you, Susan. We now move to a vote for all the remaining nominees. All those in favour of the nominees in Appendix 3, where only one nominee has been proposed, please raise your hand. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Those recommendations are carried. Item 12 is the Constitution Review Report. Imogen, I understand that you're speaking to support. If you could move it and have your seconder, please.
My seconder, I believe, is Stephen.
Thank you.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Those of you who have worked your way through our current constitution will not have failed to notice how large and unwieldy it has become. The constitution has historically been updated incrementally and has differing levels of detail in different places, and it was often hard to locate the items that you needed. The Constitution Review Working Group has spent much of the last 2 years reviewing the Constitution in its entirety from end to end. This involved bringing it in line with other councils, slimming it down, and moving things out to appendices. So I need to thank Andrew Moulton, along with the other officers involved, for their work. Of course, there have been many councillors involved, past and present, and it has been totally cross-party, but everybody has brought their experience together into this much improved document. But don't forget, this is not the end. If you feel that there is anything else that still needs to be changed or improved, the Constitution Review Working Group will continue its work going forward to review any changes and keep the Constitution up to date. I've also been asked to point out there has been a late amendment to the Audit Committee on page 116, where the word approve has been added. I am aware that recommendation 3 on this agenda item is causing concern amongst some of our councillors, and I'll be happy to ask the Mayor for separate votes on these if required. Up to this point, we have brought all contracts worth more than 5 million annually and those more than 25 million over their lifetime to this council for an agreement to set up the procurement strategy and start the process. At that point, there are opportunities, as is only right, for councillors to scrutinise that process, make suggestions and amendments. We have seen this play out recently with the award of the waste contract. The procurement process is also monitored by our cross-party overview and scrutiny committees and the working groups until it was concluded. However, what happened at the end is extremely unusual for any council, which is to bring the results of the process back to the council again to vote on at the award stage. Once the bidding process is complete and we are at the award stage, it cannot provide an opportunity for councillors to discuss or suggest any changes. This is because procurement law forbids councillors from being able to influence the decision at that point. We can only raise concerns about it possibly not being a fair process, and to suggest anything else or any deviations at that final stage could result in legal action being taken against us. As the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny has confirmed that this final step is not carried out by any similar council, the recommendation from the officers was to remove it altogether. This would bring Woking Borough Council in line with the rest of the country and remove the risk of potentially expensive legal action being triggered. However, as I understand from recent correspondence, removing this item is still not acceptable to some of my fellow members, which would prefer to see if we can get all 3 groups to mutually agree this position So I'm proposing an alteration to the recommendation to allow us to further time for discussion. And this has been tabled, and I hope everybody will feel free to be able to vote for it.
Thank you, Imogen. You've got the amendment on the orange sheets. Yeah. So, Pauline.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask the monitoring officer under 4.2.13.16 to confirm that this alteration to the recommendation means that the full council will continue to approve procurement above 5 million unless it changes in future.
Right, I'm told the answer is yes, Pauline.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Andrew.
So can members please show if they accept this alteration, please? Thank you very much. So that's carried. Yep. Does any member wish to speak against the report? Yes, Rachel. Right. As we've got somebody speaking to it, the seconder to Imogen's proposal, you can speak or reserve your right.
I think I'll reserve my right, if I may. Thank you.
Rachel, if you'd like to carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to begin by acknowledging the huge amount of work that has gone into the review of the Constitution. Over the last 2 years, both our officers and the working group have worked really hard to produce a revised document that is in many respects a significant improvement to our current Constitution. I also welcome the late alteration that's been made to the recommendations. However, there is, to my mind, one big missed opportunity which I think we will all be able to relate to here. Anyone who's been a councillor here for any length of time knows the confusion that often erupts during full council meetings when an amendment is proposed. It's not just awkward, I've known it in my time to be extremely chaotic, and I'm sure this kind of confusion and time wasting is not what residents want or expect to see. Procedural uncertainty with repeated challenges from the floor and a lack of clarity on who speaks when and what happens next. We've all seen it, we've all experienced it. And yet in the section of the Constitution dealing with amendments remains largely unchanged. Section 5.17.7 still lacks the clear detail that would bring structure and clarity to the process. It doesn't tell us when the proposer of an amendment is allowed to speak, for how long. It doesn't tell us that a seconder is required, whether the seconder can speak, and whether and at what point the original proposer of the motion is asked if they accept the amendment and what happens next. It doesn't say whether and when the debate on the amendment should take place. So it's no surprise that confusion often reigns at this point. And frustratingly, the working group did actually do the work on this. Officers spent some considerable time producing flowcharts to make the process clearer, and the group spent considerable time reviewing them so that they clearly mapped out the amendments process to assist councillors in framing debates and understanding when and how to make effective interventions. These flowcharts have been referenced in the draft constitution as an appendix, but in the end they have been omitted from the final document to be reviewed at an undetermined time. So this is disappointing. I think without this clarity on this section, which comes into play at almost every council meeting, we're simply inviting more confusion and time lost in avoidable disarray and ultimately undermining the core purpose of why we're here. Just as a final point, I also note that the executive has been increased from 8 members to 10 members. That is referenced as a link in the Constitution. And while I don't doubt the amount of work that must be involved in being an executive member, this will have monetary implications which are not noted in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And invite anybody who wishes to speak for or against that, if you'd like to show of hands. Pauline.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't actually intending to speak on this with the amendment, but I'd just like to address the point that Rachel made. I think she's absolutely right. The flowchart was very useful, but I would ask the group go back and have a little look at it, because I found some flaws in it when I reviewed it, which I sent back to Democratic Services, where some things were not clear still about who does what in what order. So I think if we could go around that flowchart one more time before we publish it, I think that would be useful. At the moment it doesn't quite work. I'd also like to thank the committee for accepting the amendments I'd put in, although I'm not a member of the group. I had a few happy hours reading the whole thing. I think I learnt a bit that I didn't know before. So I'd like to thank the committee or the group for accepting those amendments. But before we publish those flow charts, could we just go through the comments on those as well, because there are some issues with the flow charts as drafted.
Thank you, Pauline. Flu.
Thank you. I also wasn't intending to speak, and I would dispute with Pauline, not that she has spent happy hours reviewing the Constitution, but that those hours were few. I think they must have been considerable, because it's still quite a long document, although it's only about 2/3 the size it was before. What I think is it will be a very great pity to lose all the rest of the Constitution over this one relatively small issue, which is no worse than it was before, although I think we should look at it perhaps at the next meeting of the Constitution Review Working Group and get it sorted out, because the point Rachel made is valid, and we did discuss it in the working group. But I would really hate to see us lose 2 years' work over some flow charts, which I'm sure we can get agreement on at the next meeting.
Thank you, Prue. Stephen, did you want the right to reply?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. First, if I may, in reference to Rachel's point, I think those are very legitimate points she's raised about amendments and how amendments are handled. There is, of course, the opportunity for us to look at that again. This is, despite all of the work of the last 2 years, not set in stone. Things can still be changed, and they will be, no doubt. And this is one thing I'm sure that the Working Party will want to look back at and have a decision as to how we might manage this process rather better. So I'm quite prepared to accept that we should look at that again. On Rachel's other point about the expansion of the executive, I guess I'm the person that's best placed to answer that. One way of looking at this is that we had an unusually small executive last year with 8, and that was partly because I took on all of the planning portfolio alongside the housing portfolio and the partnerships portfolio. And while I'm not too worried about hard work, I have to say that was a lot of work. The planning portfolio in particular, with the local plan to pilot through the council. So although I'm retaining oversight of the local plan, I think it's entirely appropriate that my colleague Martin Alder takes on the other parts of the planning portfolio. He's extremely able and capable, and I'm looking forward to working with him on that side of council business. The other reason we have an additional or a strengthened executive is that I took the view that community safety and public protection were immensely important areas, and there was nobody better to handle this than Lou Timlin, who is a person of great ability, and I'm extremely pleased that she's joining the executive. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Stephen. I'd like now to invite members to vote for Imogen. Right of reply. I've given that to Stephen.
I have a right of reply. Basically, this constitution isn't going to be cast in stone. This is, the latest version that we're going to take, and obviously the Constitution Review Working Group can carry on reviewing things. So any other amendments and things, bits you want us to look at, we're quite happy to look at and go through them. And the Constitution Working Group the format of it hasn't changed, but we could still amend the Constitution going forward, and the suggestions that have been said this evening sound like pretty good ones to go for the next stage. But I hope you can support it as it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So voting on the recommendation, and that's the recommendation that now includes that alteration on to recommendation 3 on the orange sheets. Could I have a show of hands for that recommendation? All those for? Okay. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Those recommendations are carried. We can now move on to item 14, which is councillor question time. We have 30 minutes for this. I think we're doing okay for time. The first one is Adrian Betteridge to ask his question of the exec member for housing partnerships and local plan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for the executive member for housing partnerships and the local plan. Stephen, could you please update the council on progress with community facilities in the Arborfield strategic development location?
Thank you for your question, Adrian. I'm pleased to say that the council has been working closely with Crest Nicholson to deliver the new infrastructure required to support this growing community. One of the first things we did when we took control of the council was talked with developers about the slow delivery of community infrastructure in Arborfield, and I'm pleased to say this has resulted in good progress with a lot of things, good things now happening. Sainsbury's are forecasting opening this summer ahead of expectations. Tennis courts are in the process of being refurbished and work will start this year on the sports pavilion and playing fields. Work is starting on the sixth form at Bowhunt School, funded by the Trust, with a significant uplift in the contribution from the council. I know that these facilities will be very welcome to the local community. They'll also help, of course, to relieve pressure on local roads, as people will no longer need to travel to neighbouring towns or villages to use such facilities. And of course, I think there will also be welcome to the local community the improved Leopard 3 bus service, with buses twice as frequent during the day and a new evening and weekend service. So I'm pleased to be able to draw attention to these new infrastructure deliveries.
Thank you. Adrian, do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. The new community centre is one of the most important facilities which residents are looking forward to. Can you confirm the commitment to this facility and explain when there will be further information on the design and the programme for it?
Thank you. I can certainly confirm the Council's commitment to the delivery of this facility. We've been working with Crest Nicholson on the detail of how to ensure timely delivery, because we know this is immensely important to the local community. We know that the local community has given time and energy to helping further this project. One of the things we're working with Crest Nicholson on is how we manage and control costs, because obviously one of the challenges of this is increasing building costs. We anticipate, on your point about when we think we'll know what the design and construction programme will look like, we anticipate being able to update the community on this next month. So I think it'll be very soon.
Thank you very much. The next councillor to ask a question is Rebecca Margetts, of the Exec Member for Housing Partnerships and Local Plan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for Stephen. Applying for housing often feels overwhelming, especially with complicated forms to fill out, with no easy read options or straightforward language. For adults with learning disabilities, this process can seem insurmountable. What steps is this Borough Council taking to support residents in accessing these vital services?
And thank you for your question, Rebecca. It's a really important matter you've raised. Housing register applications are made online through our Housing Online portal, and while we have made this as user-friendly as possible, anyone who requires support in completing an application for housing can request this by contacting officers and our resident access and support team. Both housing and adult social care teams work together to ensure that vulnerable residents, including adults with learning disabilities, are supported, including help to understand what housing options are available to them. Adult social care have a team for people with learning disability to support all individuals who have care and support needs. For anyone with a learning disability who is seeking alternative accommodation, they will be allocated a social worker to support them to navigate through the process. In addition to this, Adult Social Care Commission, CLASP, which we all know and love, it's a self-advocacy group for people with learning disability, and CLASP are extremely active in the community, supporting individuals who have a learning disability, including helping them understand information and fill in forms. They've helped WBC create easy read versions of information available. They've helped in lots of ways us to make information more accessible. And in addition to this, Woking Borough Council also commissioned support from Transform Housing and Citizens Advice Bureau, who are also available to support with form filling. Woking Borough Council housing allocation policy was developed with input from Adult Social Care to ensure that the needs of people with learning disabilities who have exceptional circumstances are supported. In addition to this, an easy read version of a tenancy agreement has been developed with the Housing and Learning Disability team.
Stephen, your 2 minutes is
I thought it
coming
might be.
close.
Thank you.
Rebecca, did you have a supplementary?
I do, and thank you for your answer, Stephen. I think some of the reality is not always quite as it seems. I'll give you an example. A resident was told they had to complete their application online, and I hear you saying they offer support, but they didn't have a smartphone and they weren't able to access technology. And the evidence that was needed to support an application was so extensive for an adult with learning disability, they felt completely overwhelmed and gave up making their application. So one thing I would like to ask you is, an adult with a learning disability is already known to Woking Borough Council, because often they will be claiming benefits anyway. Could the council consider a system that populates information already held online to make this whole application for them simpler? Additionally, will the council provide easier ways to support those who are unable to access technology or complete an application? Because even though you're saying it's happening, I think some things on the ground are not happening.
I thank you for that, Rebecca, and I'm sorry to hear what you've said, that there are instances of people who are really clearly still struggling with the system and feeling that they need additional support, and they fear that's not available to them. I think if you could raise, if you haven't done so already, raise the particular cases that you've referred to with our officers. I think that would be the best route. Obviously, I can't comment on an individual case I don't know anything about in the council chamber, and it wouldn't be appropriate for us to discuss individual cases in the council chamber. But if you could raise this with officers, and if you wish to copy me in your correspondence with officers, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephen Newton, you have a question, the Exec Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways.
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and may also congratulate you on your appointment. As you say, my question is to the Executive Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. Work was recently carried out in the vicinity of the roundabout at the junction of Culver Lane, Pitts Lane and Church Road. The contractors repaired the area properly, but when it came to repainting the road markings, including a roundabout and arrows, they only repainted the areas that they had dug up, not the full markings. Where the older markings have faded over time, particularly when it is dark or raining, it is very difficult to see the full markings due to the level of contrast with the newly painted area. This makes it a bit confusing for road users, in my opinion, and it does now look rather stupid. Is there anything that this Borough Council can do to work with third parties who are legitimately entitled to do works on our roads to reinstate any affected road markings in full, so the entire affected marking is restored consistently? I believe that this will help maintain road safety, avoid unnecessary distraction for road users and pedestrians, and stop the decline in appearance of our highways.
Stephen, thank you very much for your question, and also my congratulations to Carol on her new appointment. I agree the actions of SGN, the contractors, to repaint only those parts of the arrows which they disturbed and part of the circle in the centre did leave a rather disjointed appearance to that roundabout. I did see the photographs later, I thought it was rather creative art. Banksy would have been proud of it. Unfortunately, though, we're constrained. The SGN's contractors, rather utility contractors, are, as referred to in the guidance from the highways authorities, they have no obligation to improve any areas of the highway they have not disturbed, and they seem to be taking this very literally, and so we had the situation that you saw at the roundabout concerned. We will continue to discuss these issues with SGN and with other utility contractors, and moving forward, the Council Highways team are now very much aware of the condition of this junction, and it's already on the reactive maintenance list to be refreshed, and we work with our contractor to expedite the work as soon as possible to reinstate the full markings on that roundabout. I hope that satisfies you.
Thank you. Stephen, do you have a supplementary?
I do, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for that answer. I'm really pleased to hear that the roundabout will be fully reinstated, hopefully in the fairly near future. I noticed what you said about the highways authorities. So I think from that, maybe I need to talk to our MPs to try and get that looked at in terms of legislation. That may help us as a council and may well help other councils across the country too. I just wondered if you would like me to keep your successor updated on my conversations and discussions and outcomes with the MPs. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sure Adrian is looking forward to it.
Thank you. Chris Cook, you have a question.
Thank you. My question is directed towards the Executive Member for Housing, Partnerships and the Local Plan. During the building of the new Southern Distributor Road, Balfour Beatty have completely closed pedestrian access between Westcott East and Gorick Plantation via all footpaths connecting to Gypsy Lane footbridge. Concerned residents have been in touch, not just from the immediate vicinity, but from further afield, all of whom use these footpaths on a regular basis. Many of the residents feel it is essential to maintain access to nature and green spaces for their physical and mental well-being. Our council priorities include active travel, but closure of these footpaths is counter to that priority. What can we do as a council to facilitate this request and seek to reopen and maintain access to at least one footpath for the pedestrians through the development area for as much of the construction period as possible?
Thank you for your question, Chris. And first of all, can I say that I quite understand the concern that you're expressing and the need to try and ensure that footpaths remain open if at all possible. There are a number of walking routes which run through the site of the strategic development location, and these are naturally instantly impacted by construction of the new road and bridge. But we do have to consider safety here, and for the safety of the public, these walking routes have been closed for the periods of construction, and they will be reopened once activities have been deemed it's been deemed safe enough to do so, and I think that must be our guiding principle, safety. There are very large construction vehicles manoeuvring between each end of the South Wokingham Distributor Road site, as access for materials and equipment is predominantly from the eastern end, because access is not permitted directly from Finch Hampstead Road. Now, we appreciate the impact this may have on some walkers of these closed routes, and I would dearly like to be able to find a solution, but we must make the safety of our residents and the contractors the most important consideration in this. You can keep up with the latest news on this project, including any changes to routes which are closed or opened, by signing up to our South Wokingham community newsletter via the council's website. And if you've got any questions or want to report a problem related to this project, please email or call Balfour Beatty via the details on the council's website. I know that's not exactly the answer you were hoping for, Chris, but I'm sure you can understand that safety is really of paramount importance.
Chris, do you have a supplementary? No.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for the Executive Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. The North Downs line provides about half the train services from Wokingham to Reading, offering services from Guildford and Gatwick Airport, with a service of 2 trains running per hour from Wokingham. It provides important access from Wokingham and Crowthorne to Farnborough for sixth form college students living in the borough. The Local Transport Plan 4, adopted in March this year, includes an ambition as part of developing the economy as support increased capacity along the North Downs line. However, the term capacity has different meanings in the context of railways. What is meant by increased capacity?
Thank you, Shona, for your question. That's not very often I thought I was going to get questions on my hobby of railways, but here we go. Increased capacity is, in the context of the local transport plan, should be taken to mean an increase in the number of passengers that are able to travel by rail on North Downs line. This might be by increasing the number of available seats, by the use of additional carriages or carriages of a different design, but it could also mean the train operator adding a new service to increase the number of trains per hour or the frequency. The third one, which you could use in certain circumstances, is to increase the speed, average speed of the trains, but that is probably not a practical option in this situation because of the nature of the traffic. So the borough is keen to continue to promote rail and bus services to help alleviate road traffic congestion and to help contribute to our efforts in fighting the climate emergency. While we do not directly influence rail services, we do discuss services with train operators regularly and also work with them to help our residents access the services by sustainable means where possible. Thank you.
Shona, do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. A second runway at Gatwick Airport will require at least 54% of air passengers to access the airport using public transport. Gatwick Airport and CWR have established a strategic partnership to enhance services on the North Downs line, improving rail connectivity in Surrey and the Thames Valley. Is Wokingham Borough Council seeking to join this partnership?
I have to be quite honest, I don't know what our status is on that, and so I will hand it to, I'll get you the answer, but I think Adrian will probably be the person who will reply to you.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Andy.
Thank you. My question is to the Executive Member of Active Road Transport and Highway. As a councillor and a father of 2 children living in Early, I'm deeply concerned about pedestrian road safety. Wokingham Road is not just a wide and busy road for cars, it's also a road that many pedestrians need to cross, whether to reach Early Railway Station or to get to Woody. It is not easy to cross there, but I believe we can and we must improve the situations. We have submitted a request for the council to consider installing a pedestrian crossing on Wokingham Road near Early Railway Station. But even as we speak, pedestrians are still facing this difficult situation every single day. Therefore, I ask the executive member to ensure this request is given full and proper consideration, and this important crossing is added to the priority list and delivered as soon as possible. Thank you.
Andy, thank you very much for your question. Indeed, like you, the safety of our residents and the users of our roads is a high priority. The Council are committed to ensuring that the highway is as safe as it possibly can be. However, as you know, providing new or improved facilities such as a new pedestrian crossing requires funding, and we know it's quite substantial. Signalised one is over £100,000. We do not have an unlimited budget, and therefore, to ensure that our public funds are directed to those sites where there is the greatest of need, a full assessment will be undertaken. This will consider the current road characteristics, the existing facilities available, the volume and speed of traffic, the number of injury accidents at the location in a 3-year period, the number of people crossing the road, the types of users doing so, and the difficulty those people have in finding a suitable gap to cross the road. As with all requests made to the Council for a new crossing via the Report a Road Safety Concern form on our website, which I recommend to everybody who wants to report such a thing, all of these factors will be taken into consideration when the team consider your request. If it is considered appropriate, the actual provision for a crossing would be subject to further detailed design and will be added to the capital programme should funding become available.
And did you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. As this is a busy crossing point on the Workingham Road, I believe the council must be consider this plan. Could you please keep updating us on this?
Yes, Andy, it's probably my last speech as Active Travel and Transport and Highways. So I expect Adrian will in future be sending you updates on the status of this item, much as we would hope to be able to do for all people who are requesting such crossings.
Thank you. The final question is from Caroline Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for the Executive Member for Economic Development, Sports, Leisure and the Arts. The Playing Pitch Strategy Action Plan was presented to the Community and Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 20th of January 2025. On page 413 of the papers to that meeting, paragraph 1.4 states feasibility work either has or will be conducted prior to any commitment to delivery of a new 3G pitches throughout the borough. Please will you provide a current status report on the 3 sites identified provisionally in early, the 3G pitches as to their feasibility. The sites being Chelfont Park, Laurel Park and Maiden Early School. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Caroline. I know this really is of a concern to your ward residents. Despite the delivery of 6 new full-size 3G artificial pitches within the borough over the last 10 years, the recently approved playing pitch strategy identified there was still a significant shortfall of around 8 3G artificial pitches to meet current demands. The playing pitch strategy set out a high-level strategy which included seeking to deliver a new 3G pitch within the existing settlement of Early. This subject to a site being identified. The Council is aware of the challenges and the sensitivities around siting this type of facility within an existing community, and officers are currently exploring what sites might be available to deliver a new 3G pitch to serve the community in Early. And once all potential sites have been identified, then we can move on to establishing the assessment criteria. It's worth noting that it may be that there isn't a suitable site within Early where a 3G pitch would be acceptable and financially sustainable, and ultimately we might need to meet this demand at another location within the borough. Outside of Early, our ambitious plans within the playing pitch strategy envisaged the development of a third 3G pitch within the Arborfield SDL, 3 new 3G pitches on the Grays Farm Fruit Farm Sports Hub, and 2 new 3G pitches shared with the new school at the proposed Loddon Valley Garden Village settlement.
Caroline, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you. Many thanks for your reply. The Playing Pitch strategy identifies specifically Chelfont Park, Maiden Early School and Laurel Park. Both Chelfont Park and Maiden Early School are surrounded by residential properties, so noise and floodlighting would impact their amenity. Laurel Park is also adjacent to a large peaceful nature reserve. All 3 sites have serious parking and access issues, and the space taken would leave almost no space for other activities such as exercise. In my opinion, this makes all 3 sites not viable. Would you agree? Thank you.
I would not disagree with Caroline. I mean, look, this sums up our Early community conundrum, really, doesn't it? We're crying out for a 3G pitch to serve our community of 32,000 in Early, but it's in a mature residential setting. So where do we put it? Or do we meet this demand outside of Early, which in my opinion would be a real shame? All I can say is, let's find that space.
Thank you very much. That concludes the business of this evening's meeting, and I'd like to declare the meeting closed.